Hey guys, Tightrope here, and today we're taking a look at the 1.50 patch changes to US forces and British. I was hoping to do all 4 factions in this video, but unfortunately, I spent so long on the Brits, that wasn't possible, so check back tomorrow for the Axis breakdown. The Air Support Centre has received quite a few buffs, definitely underutilized after the last round of nerfs it received. So first off, the air supply upgrade has been reduced in terms of manpower and fuel costs. The Strafe is the big winner here, doubled in damage, had its munitions cost decreased, and the second plane comes in earlier. So we'll do single plane to the Luftwaffe plane in the last video, so we'll see how it compares. Should do 40 damage, take them down to 70 health. Yep.
99 fighters here. SOP boys, strafe that target.
Still pretty easy to dodge, like the startup time of this is still not that fast. So yeah, plenty of time to dodge. I don't think that's going to be oppressive, the second plane coming in 1 second earlier. The Grasshopper recon run has also been changed. Used to, as it flew over, give you kind of detection of units that were there, but didn't get direct sight, couldn't use off maps on them or anything. But now, as you can see, gives you a cone of vision around the plane. It's just a vision strafe straight up. And if you upgrade it with the advanced air reconnaissance, now it gives you a bigger cone, increased by 15 range, I think. And more health on the plane, so it's less likely to get shot down by enemies. It's way higher up as well. I think that's, high altitude gives you more vision, less likely to be shot down. So yeah, pretty big buffs to the Air Support Centre, definitely needed. Don't think this is going to displace Infantry Support Centre though, at least in most modes, as the most popular support centre. The V1 ability on the Sherman high explosive rounds has had a cost reduction going from 45 to 30 munitions. And at 30, it's kind of worth considering using again, so I think it's worth demonstrating how they go against squad infantry. They do up the damage cap from 3 miles to 5, increase the AoE, but they massively decrease the penetration. I think your fire penetration while high explosive is on is 30. So you've got to be really careful.
High explosive, loader, ready rack.
Okay, here we go. I got up against the clump up grenadier. Bad time. But they do cover a pretty big area, don't they? See the damage cap 1 model like surviving most of the engagement. Now explosives are off. So yeah, they're definitely worth considering using again. I think the Sherman in high explosive mode is kind of overshadowed by how strong the Bulldozer is right now. It's kind of crowding out the regular Sherman, but worth considering. I think one of the issues with these kind of abilities, though, and it affects a lot of abilities in this game, is that these type of abilities aren't like a straight buff in every situation, and you can't turn them off. So if you got into a sticky situation, you activated high explosive rounds, 10 seconds in, you needed to fight a tank now, like some tank rotators. You're still on high explosive for 20 more seconds, doing almost no penetration, no damage against the enemy vehicle, and you can't turn it off. So I think that is holding back quite a lot of these type of abilities from actually seeing play. The Sherman Bulldozer has received some changes. When you spawn it initially, it will have the dozer blade up, so it'll be moving around at max speed. And they actually fixed the dozer blade. It finally functions against mines. So I've got a bunch of mines down here. It's supposed to half the damage from mines and make the Bulldozer immune to engine criticals. So yep, that mine should have done 200 damage, but only did 100. Got a whole row of mines down here, so let's see. Looks like you can see indicator that this is offering me protection above it. So yeah, even now that I'm below half health, I still don't receive engine crit from mines. And it says here, reduces speed by 50%. In the patch notes it says 40%. Looks like 50% to me. It is moving very, very slowly with the dozer blade down. So You want to toggle this on and off for sure, because that is a big speed penalty. Okay, I've got the dozer blade down. Now I'm going to go in reverse. Does it still stop me from getting engine credit? Yes. Wow. I kind of wasn't expecting that. So this dozer blade being down is all you need. You don't need to be going front on into the mines. That's a little bit surprising. I could see maybe it would have been hard for them to implement it otherwise, but still a surprising turn of events there. The Scott received a buff to its vertical tracking speed. This is basically how fast it raises its gun before it can fire. So you can see now with no targets acquired, the gun is in the lowered position. But if I attack ground, before it fires, it has to raise its gun and then it shoots the projectile. You can see even if I shoot short range, it stays at the exact same height. It doesn't like raise and lower depending on how far away the target is, which is maybe a bit of a sad thing in terms of animation. But it means that every time the Scott has to go fire its first shot, its barrel will be lowered and it delays its first shot. So increasing the tracking speed going to make the Scott feel a lot more responsive. I did before and after of a attack ground at max range, and it's about 0.7 of a second faster now. So that's a big improvement in its responsiveness. The Chaffee received a nerf to its target size, going from 16 up to 18 now. Most mediums are around 20, and most anti-tank guns are 0.05 accuracy max range, so they're now 90% chance to hit the Chaffee instead of 80% at max range. So, you know, it's a small little nerf to the Chaffee. I still think it will be more than viable after this change, but it's a slight tweak because we have seen a lot of Chaffee spam in the previous patch. The M2A1 Howitzer has received a buff to its barrage range, going from 250 to 300. So you can see that over here. 250 is to here, 300 all the way out to there. So it's a pretty nice buff. Will help you build it a little bit further back in like team game scenarios. Might keep it safe a bit easier. On top of that, it received a buff to its wind-up. I'm not entirely sure what wind-up does. I think it's like a delay before the howitzer fires. So possibly your first shell will be coming in 0.25 of a second faster now. So a little bit less delay between activating it and the first shell coming in. I'm not sure if it works for every subsequent shell after that though. Thus, you know, slightly increasing its rate of fire. I'm not sure. Maybe. Possibly not though. For the Special Operations Battlegroup, this used to be a strafe, now it is a loiter, and you can get it really early on in the game. If you go weasel straight into this 3 command points, that is super early to be getting an anti-infantry loiter. I haven't even seen how good it is yet, and I'm already worried. Look at that area it covers, dude. Is it like 120 range? Yep, 120 range. Pretty big area. Let's see how it's before. It's got 3 squads in here. Let's go for this one. Oh, there are 2 planes. Looks like they might have missed one model there, but 50 damage per pass. Suppression, no pin though. And it looks like they can miss. They're more prone to missing than the strafes are. Maybe having like a narrower band of attack or a shorter. No, not a shorter band. Okay. I think they're going to be good, but they're not going to be insane. I was worried about. I think it's largely because they often don't hit every single model. If you've got units clumped up in like light cover, this might be more of an issue. But yeah, still going to be quite strong though for only 110 munitions. Just dropping this down very early on will help you win basically any engagement. The Armoured Battlegroup has received a load of changes this patch. I did already mention in my previous video being able to build the Easy 8, one of the experimental changes. So now we'll have a look at the rest. And we'll start out with Fast Deploy. This now has a command point cost of 1. Used to be free, could get it at the start of the game. And that allowed like the 4x4 spam strategy. You would build generally 2 4x4s against Wehrmacht. And it was very strong, tough to stop in 1v1s. So adding cost to this, not going to allow that to happen anymore. I think it's probably for the best overall. This is maybe an ability where if half command point things were available, you could make this cost half a command point instead. But okay. And this does, by comparison, make strength and steel look a lot more appealing if you want to play like a long game as well. Having it, reducing the manpower cost of your vehicles essentially throughout the rest of the game. If you're looking to play a long game, this is a lot more appealing now. But because this got cost increase, this got a cost decrease, so it arrives at a similar timing if you're going for this, or faster if you're going to go strength and steel. I think they also fixed some bugs. Strength and steel does now apply to the call-in vehicles, whereas I think it didn't used to. So that's another thing to note. And then I think also the Easy 8 came down in cost by 1. So if you went fast deploy, or if you're going for either of these into Scott into the Easy 8, I think this arrives 1 command point earlier now, which is a bit of a surprise. I don't know about that. I don't think that's a very good idea. They also changed the numbers on the Seek and Destroy ability. It used to be 50% speed, now it's only 35%, but they actually buffed up its accuracy and rate of fire, which was a little bit surprising. I don't think it really needed those buffs. I do think it needed the nerf, don't think it needed the buffs. 30% more rate of fire is really strong, and then more accuracy on top of that. This is a very, very good ability. So I think overall, after all of these changes, Armoured probably still going to be the most popular battle group for US forces, at least in ones. Starting things out for the British forces, we're going to be looking at Royal Engineers. They got a capture rate bonus from 1 to 1.25. And I think this does make a lot of sense because Brits have such a limited roster of capping units early on. You got Royal Engineer, Vickers, and Infantry Sections. Like, that's it, Whereas other, the Dingo can't cap, whereas like the Crutchets and the Ketten can. They don't have any like early call-in infantry that are really good for capping or anything like that. So it did feel like Brits were a pretty big capture disadvantage compared to all the other factions. So now I think this evens things out. So I think this is a good change. But they also buffed the health up on the Sapper by 10. This is a bit questionable. Like, it's already quite a good squad defeating like all the other comparable squads that it matches up against. And especially with some of the other buffs that come to the heavy armor battle group where these are cheaper now. Already we're seeing quite a lot of Royal Engineer spam. Seem to be a little bit too good. So maybe the 10 health buff needs to be at least partially reverted. The Dingo has received a load of changes this patch. First off, it's had a manpower cost increase by 15 manpower. But it's had improvements to its accuracy at all ranges, both close and long range. So this should really help it out against infantry. We're going to test that out here against some coastals, both close and longer range, see how it goes. Also on top of this, it's had a health change. It used to have 220 health, now it's 235. Also had a slight reduction in its armor, I think it is. So we'll see how it goes against small arms against the coastals here. Coastals are going to attack back, so we can see like roughly, what it's going to be like. I think oftentimes the coastals are going to be in some kind of cover. So maybe this is not entirely representative, but see how it goes anyway.
Look at it, just fight! Stand and fight!
I think this Dingo's running kind of hot in terms of not getting penetrated. I mean, it didn't make like a huge difference in terms of time to kill. I think its accuracy is pretty good at all ranges. But I would say, yeah, you're going to take some damage, and if the squad's in cover, maybe it's a bit of a bad engagement for the Dingo. So maybe how you'd want to handle this is, if they're in cover, but it's before they've got access to snares, probably you drive in close with the Dingo to nullify the cover, do max damage to them. But afterwards, you probably try and stay at range. Remember, the Dingo doesn't have self-repair like a lot of the other ultralights, so you're going to need squads to repair this back up after it takes that damage. Now with the reduced armor, the Dingo has received a load more changes beside that. It's had some of its aim times reduced, So less delay between the target being acquired and the Dingo starting to shoot. So it should feel more responsive now. Firing cone. This was one of the big issues with the Dingo. How his firing cone was so narrow that if you're trying to chase down an enemy vehicle with slight deviations in the pathfinding, the Dingo's gun would stop shooting at them. So it made the Dingo pretty bad at light vehicle chase downs, which, that was one of its big roles, trying to counter like 250 in the early game. But because of its narrow cone, couldn't do that. But now, from 5 to 15, should be a lot better at chasing down vehicles. On top of that, they made changes to its traverse. So as it like switches, rotates the gun from side to side a lot faster. And if it acquires like a target on the edge of its traverse, previously, as soon as the target got out of range, it would start going back to center. So if something was at the edge of your range, like on and off, on and off, on and off, it will keep like doing this and never actually shoot at the target. But now it will stay at the edge for 4 seconds before turning back to center. Which, if something's at the edge, and especially during, like again, those light vehicle chase down scenarios, it should mean more consistent damage from the Dingo. So yeah, a lot of good changes here to the Dingo. It wasn't really serving its purpose properly because of all those firing and aim time issues, cone issues, so it should be a lot better. Definitely worth considering trying this out this patch. The Polsten upgrade on the CMP truck has had a cost reduction from 60 to 45, which I think is fair enough because with its current performance, it's basically only good for anti-air, so you shouldn't have to pay through the nose to get it. The Humber has received a load of buffs this patch. First off, its armor has been increased on the front and sides by 5, so it'll be quite a lot more resilient to small arms damage. No increase to its health, which is kind of interesting because at 240 health, it's in that very susceptible range to taking engine damage from one snare. A Panzerfaust does 120 damage, so a Panzerfaust plus 1 small arm shot will give the Humber an engine crit, so it's very susceptible to snares. The Panzer Grenadier for Afrika Korps anti-tank grenade only does 110 damage, so maybe that's like anti-tank grenade and 2 bullets will give the Humber engine damage. So very susceptible to engine damage still, but more resilient to small arms after this change. Now, the Humber's got 2 guns on it, 30 cal here, which is completely unchanged, and then the 15mm machine gun is what they call it. So yeah, that's had a lot of changes. Used to have incremental accuracy, and what that was is, the more models that were in the area around where the Humber was shooting, the more accuracy this gun would have, the 15mm machine gun. But given that the Humber wasn't very good at dealing with blobs, that didn't really make sense. So they got rid of the incremental accuracy and they put that accuracy essentially onto the gun just naturally. So this will make it a lot more consistent overall, especially against like lower model count squads. It's going to be way, way stronger, maybe stronger like chasing down squads looking for wipes as well. So you have to watch out for that now. I think the Humber will be quite lethal at chase down on wipes. They've also added some AoE to the 15mm machine gun. It does have a damage cap of 1. So on like a squad, it's not going to matter at all. Like even the squad's mega clumped up, it can only damage 1 model at a time anyway. But maybe it'll help it out if the Humber misses a shot, lands close to the model, and it'll do like a little bit of a tickle of damage through its AoE. Or if you've got 2 squads that are like really stacked on top of each other, then maybe its AoE can help it out there. On top of that, it's had like a sight range improvement from 40 to 45 sight, which does make like quite a big difference. Say if like a Panzerschreck squad's like running at you with 10 sight advantage, you can see that Schreck coming and back away quite easily before the Schreck can get in range and shoot at you. So it should make the Humber a lot more evasive against like Panzerschreck squads, the extra sight range. And it's had a slight speed boost as well, going from 8.1 to 8.3. And that also will help it out with the chase down on retreating squads. So yeah, a big lot of changes to the Humber. So we're going to try it out here against a squad that's behind light cover, see how it goes. And also against 2 squads here that are like mega clumped up on top of each other, see how its AoE goes, basically. Let's see how we go.
Hostile reserves. Pick up your ears.
Oof. Oh, I think I saw a little bit of AoE come into play there. It looks pretty good to me. Seems like the light cover does slow things down a little bit, but still pretty good kill rate here on the Humber. Looks pretty good to me. Looks, yeah, pretty good. Yeah, cover is still maybe going to flummox it a bit, but, you know, so fast, so maneuverable. You can just drive around the other side of cover pretty easily. And, yeah, that looked really good. Now we're going to see how it goes chasing down a retreating squad. Out in the open. Not as good as I was expecting, honestly. If we get really close. Okay, not as lethal at chasing down a retreating squad as I was expecting. In fact, yeah. So yeah, you don't have to worry about it too much. The squads are not going to get completely annihilated on retreats like they did against the L6s in the previous patch. Looking at the infantry section, first off, its build time has been reduced by 3 seconds per squad. So not a huge difference there, but a slightly faster start for Brits if you're going for like an infantry section start, which I think that's fine. Also, they standardized the reinforced time. I would guess that maybe the pistol model had a really weird reinforced time, so they made all models have the exact same reinforce, so that makes sense. But the juicy stuff is the buffs to the Bren. First off, cost reduction by 10. So yeah, it was always pretty expensive at 100. Almost everybody was just going recce package, so bringing that down slightly. But then they've also buffed its accuracy at all ranges, and they've buffed its cooldown as well, so we'll be firing more often and firing more accurately. If we have a look at the DPS curve, the old patch in blue, new patch in red, you can see that the Bren is way better right across the range. So 9 close versus 6 close to 10 versus 7.5-ish. So this is a massive buff, like right across the DPS curve everywhere. The Bren is now a much, much better option. I'm going to try it out here in a long-range engagement against a Fallschirmjäger. I think this is maybe like a pretty realistic scenario where you maybe want the Bren if you've gone up against an opponent who's maybe more focused on this kind of like elite at this kind of timing. Less for focus on like vehicles where obviously you want the AT rifles instead. So they do get the ambush bonus. Let's see how we go after that. Okay, so at the start of the fight, in terms of health v health, it seems to be pretty even, but I imagine as things start to progress, the damage from the Bren will start to take over and the sections will start to win the fight much more convincingly. And yeah, as I was predicting, when you start like dropping down lower models versus lower models, that's when the Bren takes over. You start to win the engagement much more convincingly. So yeah, this does make the Bren now a more appealing option if you're up against these kind of mid-game like anti-infantry specialists, things like maybe Panzer Grenadiers, or like if the Afrika Korps player has gone for like the 6-man upgrade on them, or just Wehrmacht Panzer Grenadiers as well. Fallschirmjäger, squads like that, maybe Basiglieri with the LMG upgrades. Now you can kind of fight fire with fire. The Bren is a much better option. The Grunt has undergone a huge number of changes. First off, we'll focus on its 37mm gun, the one that can fire in any direction, compared to the 75mm gun here, which can only fire in that short cone at the front. So this has had its AoE reworked. I'd say overall probably a nerf to its performance against infantry in terms of AoE, and also had its damage cap reduced from 3 to 2, but it's had its reload speed buffed up by a reduced reload time, so that maybe makes up for things a little bit there. On top of that, it's also had its penetration increased quite dramatically, so now it's like guaranteed to pen against things like the Marder, and should even be pretty consistent against things like the Whirlwind that are more lightly armoured medium tanks. So yeah, big change to 37mm, much more reliable against vehicles, and yeah, higher rate of fire as well. On top of that, the 75mm has also got some pen buffs in mid and long range, so this is going to make it much more fearsome in the frontal engagements. And also it's had its scatter buffed, or by reducing it, and the Grunt has had a health improvement, extra shot to kill from most tanks now. So the Grunt has received a huge number of, I'd say, overall buffs here. Going to be a lot more formidable against armor, and maybe justify its, extra side tech, because basically nobody's been building Grunts. It's mainly been focused on the Matilda even after all the nerfs. So I think after this, the Grunt definitely worth building again. So we're going to try out the Grunt in a long range head-to-head against the Panzer IV that's upgraded with these skirts. So let's get the extra health. Let's see how we go. So it looks like pretty much a guaranteed win for the Grunt against the skirted up Panzer IV. So yeah, if you're looking to conquer some P4s, the Grunt is now a viable option. The Stuart's Vet 1 ability, Tread Shot, has been changed. Apparently it used to do a different effect depending on how far away the enemy vehicle was, which I didn't even know, but now it's been standardized to always do minus 80% speed, minus 40% to rotation rate for 5 seconds. One interesting thing I noticed about this is that it always seems to penetrate the Tread shot, even against something like the Panther, with 300 armor. Tread Shot always goes through. So that could be like a pretty good combo, up against like a heavy tank. Tread Shot guaranteed slowdown, maybe combine out with like the air and sea Loiter. Good option against the big boys. 2 of the training center bonuses have been reworked. Looking at team weapon training first. Now it gives crew members plus 15 health and 20% rate of fire, so that's either cooldown or reload. Veterancy gain is unchanged. So before this we got the Vickers 80, 120 health on the 17 pounder, 95, but this did not go to 135 like I was expecting. It did gain veterancy, you see it gained 800, so it's getting the vet, but it's not getting the health bonus. Not entirely sure what's going on there. I think it's probably bugged. But with 15 extra health, that will make the 17 pounder a lot more resilient against like on-map artillery, things like the Walking Stuka. They have a much harder time decrewing this. The big bombs, the big off-maps will still nuke it out of existence, but these on-map artillery, I think an extra 15 health will eventually, once it's fixed, make 17 pounder a lot better. And just in general, T-weapons with 15 more health, going to be quite good. Light vehicle training also reworked here. They just changed the bonuses a bit more. I think you got an acceleration and rotation bonus now. You reduced the reload bonus, something like that. But instead of 800 veterancy points, it's now 1200. So having a look at a few of the light vehicles, 800 was already enough for a Vet 1 on the Humber anyway. But 1200 is now enough to give the Stuart Vet 1 immediately. So immediate Vet 1 with this light vehicle training maybe makes Stuart spam a bit more appealing, since you can gain instant access to the Tread Shot that way. The Bishop though, which does get light vehicle training, and essentially I think probably got nerfed by the fact that it's no longer getting a reload bonus through this.
Only gains.
Okay, this is bug 2. This is bug 2. 1200? Hello? There's only 800. Okay, there are some bugs on these. Either way, you know, 2/3 of the way to Vet 1 on the Bishop. Gets you close to that direct fire. So maybe after your first barrage or two, you'll start to be able to use the direct fire. And accelerating your way towards that direct fire early on really helps out the Bishop. Having a look at the Vickers. Personally, I've barely built a single Vickers since the time to pin nerfs a few patches ago. I think it's been in the complete dumpster. But they've made it 10 seconds faster to build. I guess another option, making the Brit early game look a little bit stronger. I guess that's where they felt the Brits needed a buff. And they've altered the focus gunnery ability. I think it's got 5 more range than it used to have. And the suppression penalty it gave has been reduced. So we'll see how it goes here. We're going to use it up against some Grenadiers. The tooltip's a bit confusing here as well. Does it give 23% accuracy or 45%? I don't really know. So
No respite, wicked.
that's what it does to the arc. Greatly shortens up the arc. Lasts for a whole minute here as well.
Silence. Grenadiers ready. We're raring to go.
So yeah, with the extra accuracy, that must be more than 23%, right?
We're on, lads.
That looks like 45% more accuracy to me, in terms of how fast it's killing the greens. So yeah, this ability was basically never worth using before. Now, I could see a place for it.
Enemy squad fucked.
Can you disable it by changing position? No, you can't. So you gotta be careful. It lasts for 60 seconds and you can't disable it. Can't cancel it by packing up and repositioning. You're stuck with this really narrow arc, which could catch you in trouble against like a lot of incoming infantry. So, I don't know. That's a long time. I would maybe like to see it, you know, be cancelled if you pack up the machine gun. The British Heavy Armour Battlegroup has received a load of changes. First off, they've shuffled a lot of the abilities around in it. So radio unit used to be here, now it's down here. This used to be light vehicle withdraw and refit, now it's over here. And then this used to be where the engineer buff was, and now it's over here. So I've shuffled these around. Overall, I think, you know, having light vehicle refit available at one command point right at the start makes sense. You want it early on, so potentially you could refund a Dingo right at the start. So I think there's a good option bringing it in earlier. You know, if Royal Engineers weren't completely busted right now, this would actually be quite a competition, because I do quite like this vet game bonus. You know, I've played with this battle group a lot in the previous patch, and I did really like this bonus. But obviously this is just so strong right now with Royal Engineer performance. And radio net. Now you can kind of go like a max vehicle build as well. You can get both the vet gain and radio net combined up. So you could get your vehicles pretty strong with that combination. So overall, I think this is like a decent shuffle around. The light vehicle withdraw and refit has had its munitions cost added back onto it. So if you want to withdraw, there is a cost to it. Okay, I think that's fine overall. The Churchill has had some changes as well. Population cost reduction from 18 to 16. And on top of that, it's had a reload reduction by half a second faster reload now. Still not incredibly good, but yeah, I think those are fine. I think if the Churchill was not a call-in, basically nobody would use it. So I think these are relatively safe buffs on the regular Churchill. No buffs to the Black Prince. They also buffed up the AoE on the Crusader AA again, which I'm a little bit worried about, honestly. We'll see how it goes here up against a clumped up unit and a unit out in the open. Seems pretty solid. And I imagine this would actually benefit quite a lot from the radio net buff as well. Or like, you know, from activating radio net, this combination. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried that we're going to see like a slight resurgence in Crusader AA spamming, just in general with this whole battle group. you don't have to tech to the final text structure at all. You can go like Humber. Well, in fact, my old build was Humber, Bishop. Occasionally I'll build a Crusader AA into one of the Churchills. Usually this Churchill, because the Black Prince arrived a little bit late, maybe combined up with like some AT guns and a bit of a stall going. So yeah, this is a very all-in on the call-in type battle group in my opinion, and I'm not a huge fan of that style. It's probably going to be very, very strong with the War Engineer buff as well. As always, a huge thank you goes out to my Patreon backers, and if you enjoy these videos, I hope you consider coming on board.